Welcome back to NBAV. That's NBAVE. NBA Avenue on Spotify. We have virtually every handle. We're NBA Avenue on Facebook, NBA Avenue on X, NBA Avenue. We have the LinkedIn. We have NBAVE.com coming soon. We're going to have some content posted there. And of course, as always, you can email the show with your comments or questions at nbavenue@yahoo.com. Send us your thoughts and questions, and we'll answer them on the show, and you guys can become part of the action. So let's do a little recap of last night's NBA action. This is January 11th, 2024. Let's recap the NBA, and let's do a little State of the Union with what is happening league-wide. We'll breeze through some of the games that don't really need our attention as much. So first we have the Spurs beating the Pistons, 130-108, Spurs beating the Pistons. That's no news to anybody. We don't really need to focus on that. Then we have the Kings defeating the Hornets. Obvious one there, 123-98. That's expected. And then we come to an interesting game. We come to the Celtics winning an overtime thriller against the Timberwolves. Now, at the end of regulation, the Timberwolves really had this game. They had the lead, they had the ball, and down the stretch, the best player on the floor was Jason Tatum. And very often in these playoff-type atmosphere games, you have the best team in the East versus the best team in the West, record-wise. The game is decided, of course, in the final 2 minutes, and that often depends on who's the best player on the floor, who's playing the best in those final 2 minutes. That is the swing for the win or the swing for the loss. Anthony Edwards, the young star, was not the best player on the floor during yesterday's game. Jason Tatum was. Edwards, got a held ball. He took some tough shots. He wanted a lot of foul calls and was upset that he didn't get it. He dribbled the ball off his foot and turned it over. He turned it over more times than that. And Jason Tatum was hitting tough shots. He was going coast to coast. And that really was a big difference maker. And that's probably why, come playoff time, the Timberwolves are not going to actually make a serious run. They may win a round one matchup, but typically, these young teams that boast good records early on in the NBA season, it takes them a little bit more time. So the Timberwolves made it to the playoffs last year, and they now are in a different position than that because now they're coming in as a power player. Last year, it was everything is gravy. We made it to the playoffs. What can we do? If we can win even one round, that'll be fantastic. But now they're coming in with completely different expectations with being the one seed more than a third into the NBA season. So they are going to be coming in with high expectations, but truthful, honest expectations should be that they are going to not win a second-round matchup against anyone, and that's to be expected. Michael Jordan, when he came into the league, he had to take a couple of lumps against the Detroit Pistons before he hit that next gear, and then came back and swept the Pistons en route to an NBA Finals, and then obviously he won another 5 NBA championships before his career was said and done. Can Anthony Edwards have that kind of career trajectory? Very possibly. It would obviously be amazing, but is he on that type of path where he could be the next big thing in the NBA? Yeah, he absolutely could be, but most likely he's going to need to take another L before he turns the corner and starts being the favorite in actual playoff matchups. Then we had the Pacers beating the Wizards 112-104. That's the Wizards. The Wizards lose all their games. Then we have the Hawks beating the 76ers in overtime. But this was a game where Joel Embiid didn't play for the Sixers. So you'd have to expect the Hawks to win under those circumstances. And frankly, the Hawks 76ers is a tough matchup even with Joel Embiid. For some reason, those two teams really play each other in a lot of very close games, and if I was a Sixers fan, I would be nervous to see the Hawks in the playoffs, even with Joel Embiid on the court. Granted, they would be favored, but I think the Hawks are a very live underdog. It's a little perplexing. It's hard to understand why the Hawks aren't having a better season. DeJounte Murray is not bad. He knows how to drive. He knows how to use his length to get the ball off the glass and in. His three-point shot is streaky. He can pass a little bit. Trae Young, obviously a great scorer. And they have Jalen Johnson, the new Jalen Johnson, who's really filling the role that John Collins provided this team a few years ago. And he gets so many wide-open dunks. Teams really have trouble defending him, especially in today's NBA where defense is often not played and it's a run up and down the court both ways, basket, 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 and you get a score like 139, 132, like the Hawks did last night. Granted an overtime victory, but still super high-scoring games. That's the way the NBA is played now. But it's just hard to understand why are the Hawks not having a better season, but they'll be live. They will be live come playoff time. The Thunder doing what they do, beating the Heat 128-120 on par for them. And then we have, in the last 4 games of the evening, we have the Bulls beating the Rockets 124-119, another overtime game, 3 overtime games last night. A lot of very close NBA games. The Bulls take this one. We knew that was going to be a good matchup against the Rockets, 2 evenly matched teams. Then we have the Pelicans routing the Warriors 141-105. Now the Pelicans can do this. They have the explosive firepower, and they met the Warriors at the right time where the Warriors are really, really struggling. The problem is the Pelicans will do this for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they'll come swiftly down to earth and they'll get blown out by a similar score, or they'll get blown out by 20 points by virtually any team. So it's par for the course. We know this Pelicans team. We know how they roll. They win tonight. They'll probably win again, win a few in a row, maybe by wide margins. They'll look really good. People will start going on and on about how Zion is unbelievable to watch, and then they'll lose a few games. Zion will get gassed in the fourth quarter, and we'll continue this seesaw of the New Orleans Pelicans. That takes us to the 124-111 victory for the Utah Jazz against the Denver Nuggets, and again, we know this. We understand that the Jazz come to play virtually every night. And they have the ability, when they play well, to beat any team. They had a pretty good record for what they were last year, and they're doing the same thing again. If you aren't ready for the Utah Jazz, they can score a lot of points on you. And obviously, you'd have to think that the Denver Nuggets are the favorite in every NBA matchup that they're in. But if you don't take the Jazz seriously enough, the Jazz will come in there and they'll lay it on you. The last game of the night was the Clippers against the Raptors. The Clippers winning 126-120. They came up big. Their stars, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, came up big in the fourth quarter. And the Raptors have been doing a lot of complaining. They've been doing a lot of complaining about the reffing against the Lakers, the reffing now against the Clippers, and we understand the reffing in the NBA is inconsistent. It's horribly inconsistent. The reffing with the instant replay, how they're making their calls, what are the criteria. It seems that it just flip-flops all over the place, and we have very little insight as to how to get uniformity, how to get consistency with the calls that they're making on the floor, especially on these foul calls at the end of games. Very, very, very tough. But, again, if you don't have the best player with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, you're going to lose a lot of those games. And that's just the way it is. So with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, all of the best players were not on the Raptors in the final 2 minutes. They weren't able to win that game. So there's a little recap of last night's NBA action, and we're going to come back perhaps a little later today, and we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into the State of the Union of the NBA and what teams are looking up, what teams are looking down. Until next time, we'll hit the fake outro. Still working on that. And you can catch the show NBAVE, NBAVE.com, NBA Avenue. We're your NBA venue for a great time and some fresh takes. And we'll see you next time. Every team has challenges. If you're the worst team in the league, you certainly have challenges. But even if you are the best and most complete team in the NBA, there are still challenges that you have to tackle. And last night was January 11th. I'm talking to you today on January 12th, 2024. The Celtics got absolutely destroyed by Milwaukee. Absolutely destroyed. And a lot of that is just running into the wrong team on the wrong night. And over the course of an 82-game season, this can happen. But there are challenges that the Celtics have to overcome. When you have a team as complete as Boston, you can fall into a trap. The trap is thinking that you can do anything. You can play any type of way and be successful. Granted, they could play in various different methods. They could send the offense through different players, and they could still have a very good team and win a lot of games. But to be their best, there needs to be a hierarchy of how they play on offense. Typically, they want the ball in the hands of Jason Tatum to create, and they want to spread the floor using their big men who shoot threes. That's Porzingis, that's Horford, and they want Jrue Holiday not creating the offense as a first option, but getting those wide open corner threes that are going to happen. Because when you have as much talent on one team as Boston has, you're definitely going to have that. Jrue Holiday doesn't need to try to work and create shots. That's not what he's best at. He's best as a primary ball defender, and he gets timely buckets. He can definitely contribute on offense, and at times he can be a go-to guy, but most of the time, he's not the go-to guy. And when the Celtics came out against the Bucks, they were facing two big hurdles. One was that Milwaukee was desperate, absolutely desperate for a victory, and Giannis was going to do everything in his power to make sure that that happened. And in addition to that, they were battling themselves because their offense was taking poor shots in the first quarter. And that's because of Jrue Holiday. That's because of Kristaps Porzingis trying to take much tougher shots than he really needed to. He was taking tough shots. He was getting the ball, turnarounds inside. But it was not the type of offense that was created with good looks. It wasn't Jason Tatum driving and kicking it out to Porzingis for a wide-open three. It was Porzingis getting the ball saying, I would like to score on this play, and I'm going to take the shot regardless. It was Jrue Holiday saying, we can do anything. No, you need to play within a system. And you should play within the system that's going to be the most successful system for you, which is what the Celtics did on the night before when the Celtics were playing Minnesota. They were losing the game for most of the game, but in the fourth quarter and in overtime, they went through their best player, Jason Tatum, and he made them look really, really good, and they pulled off the victory at the end and won the game. So that's the challenge for the Celtics. It's a long season, 82 games, but the Celtics have to remain within their hierarchy of their offense, remain committed on defense, and that's their way to maximize their potential. They can win a lot of games playing in a number of ways, but the way to maximize what their team can do is to go through their primary ball handlers, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown as needed, and get those wide open shots for Jrue Holiday, get the wide open shots for Porzingis and Horford, get them easy dunks inside as well, and that's how they're going to really blow teams out, and they'll be the ones scoring 135 instead of being on the receiving end of the 135. In stark contrast to that, we had another game happen last night between the New York Knicks, who were 5-0 since the OG Anunoby trade, going against the Dallas Mavericks. Now, the Mavericks were playing this game without two of their big-time players, really without three of their big-time players, because they were playing without Luka, they were playing without their awesome rookie Derek Lively, and they were also playing for the several straight game without Dante Exum. However, Kyrie Irving returned. So they had Kyrie, but they're really missing the focal point of their team with no Luka Doncic on the court. And Luka has crushed the Knicks, as the broadcast kept reminding us last season when Luka intentionally missed the foul shot and got the rebound and put it back up and in. That was absolutely incredible. But without Luka, you would think the Knicks have a great chance. The problem is it can actually be harder to play a team like the Mavericks when Luka's out than you'd think. Not every night. If they were without Luka every night, obviously they would be a pretty easy team to face. But when you play one way every single night, like they do with Luka, and then you remove Luka from the equation, it's hard to know how they're going to play. And in this case, the way they played was Kyrie Irving and Tim Hardaway Jr. just chucked up shots at will, and they hit everything, especially in the first quarter. They were not missing. And that's a great recipe for victory. And look, Knicks fans are very, very familiar with Tim Hardaway Jr. And last night was a microcosm for what Tim Hardaway Jr. can be at his best and also at his worst. Hardaway Jr. was on fire for most of the game. He had a buzzer beater at the end of the first quarter. He was largely phenomenal. But the Knicks kept fighting back again and again and again, and they remained committed on defense. Brunson struggled, but he had timely buckets in the fourth quarter. Randall lifted them in moments. OG hit timely threes. Hartenstein was as productive as ever, and the Knicks fought back to within one, and the pivotal moment of the game happened, where Tim Hardaway Jr. had the ball with time winding down. He took an ill-advised shot, and the rebound came back out to him. The Knicks could not secure it. Hardaway, instead of taking precious time off the clock, which anyone with half a brain must have been thinking, that's what he should have been doing there. Take time off the clock. He immediately jacks up another shot and hits it off the side of the backboard. Embarrassing. And that kind of play and that kind of poor decision making is going to come back to burn them in the playoffs. Hardaway misses the shot off the side of the backboard, but it comes right back to him. Gives up the ball to Kyrie. They end up getting another shot, missing another rebound. Off a weird angle, they get the ball back again, and eventually one of their role players hits the three. Knicks now down 4. Barely any time left, and that was all she wrote. The Knicks gave a great effort. I am very happy with the way they played. If I was in charge of their team, I'd be thrilled. I would say, you guys did the right thing. It wasn't your night. The Mavericks were hitting at a crazy clip. Kyrie was off the chains, but you fought back, and this was a game that more times than not you would win because they got very lucky. The Mavericks got very lucky in the final minute of the game with several shots being missed and the ball coming off the rim at weird angles or off the backboard at weird angles and getting 4 possessions. 4 possessions on 1 possession, really 4 chances to score. That was what did the Knicks in. Had the ball taken a more typical Karam, the Knicks probably secure the rebound, come back down, and they have a good chance to score and win the game. Didn't bounce their way this time. You can always try to do better boxing out, but in this case, it was really more so a little bit of luck on the Dallas side, and it showed exactly why you would want a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. on your team, but more importantly, why you don't want him on your team, because he's going to come back to bite you at the worst of times. Outside of that game, we had the Suns coming up with a much-needed victory against the Lakers. The Lakers also needed another victory. These were 2 teams, and it was one of us has to get a victory here. It was the Suns last night. And then we had Oklahoma City Thunder dropping 139 points to the Trailblazers 77 points. And all I have to say is that if you're scoring 77 points, nearly getting doubled up in points, 139 to 77, we just have to question if you even belong in the NBA. Talk about embarrassing. That's going to do it for today. You can follow us on virtually all social media platforms at NBAVE, NB Avenue. We're your NBA venue for hoops conversation, unique storylines, and we'll see you on the next one.